I'm Matt Reynolds, and this is my podcast.
I can do the job, but running the business is quite difficult. What a lot of tradesmen lack, and I was probably one of them, is business skills.
I don't mind making mistakes. You learn from your mistakes.
Information is all around you in the minds of people that work beside you.
This is episode 1 of Trench Talk. I'm Matt Reynolds, and for those of you poised for a polished and professionally produced podcast, should probably relax your expectations now and avoid the disappointment which is sure to follow. Picture your local plumber, because that's exactly who I am. I'm self-employed and currently sitting in my home office. I've been recognised by top industry bodies, including the Copper Industry and the Master Plumbers Association, for my performance and work within the trade. I've also been awarded in the franchise sector for fast business growth, but no one except my mum, because she has to, or my kids, because I tell them they should, really cares too much about any of that. This podcast came about after I began writing for a couple of the industry magazines. I wanted to know how those at the top of their game did it, so I reached out to some of this country's best talent and highest awarded people in the hope they would help me out with a magazine piece. Somewhat surprisingly, many did. They included the likes of Gold Logie winner and star of the block Scotty Cam, and Shane Jacobson, known most famously as a lovable knockabout plumber who starred as the character Kenny in the movie Kenny. Some of these chats lasted 2 hours, of which I'd pull out 2 to 3 minutes and send them to print. It seemed a waste to throw away almost all of the wisdom these people were kind enough to share. So, here we are. We'll go wide in this format. This won't be all about bending pipes and clearing toilets. Far from it. I'm an avid learner, so there'll be something for anyone dedicated to self-improvement, which is our focus, all from the practical perspective of a local tradesman. And that would be me. I think you can, and probably should, learn from everybody. Interestingly, that's also an opinion held by many of my initial guests. I'm not a media person and I've never taken any kind of formal training, so I'm just going to give this a go and bring you the thought-provoking, colourful, and who knows, maybe some crazy characters willing to share the critical lessons they feel have helped them carve out a career and master their own trade. Feel free to email me with any suggestions, feedback, or offerings of help to podcast@xrm.com.au. You can also subscribe for new show notifications at the same site. So there you go. That's my scripted intro done. My first guest is Scotty Cam, Australia's most well-known tradesman. Some 30 years ago, he put his head down and got to work. By the time The Dedicated Carpenter came up for air, he held a Gold Logie, the highest award in Australian television. We discuss hit TV show The Block, business, his book recommendations, money, and his thoughts on asking for advice. This interview does start pretty fast, but we settle into a better rhythm after I overcome my initial nerves. I've shared this with a few people close to me already who've all commented individually that Scott's advice about taking advice is some of the best they've ever heard, so that alone makes this well worth a listen. Enjoy my chat with Scotty Cam.
Scott Cam, thanks for doing this.
No worries, mate.
You've previously been quoted saying that your apprenticeship is the best thing that you've ever done. Why do you encourage people to do an apprenticeship over other options that are obviously available?
Oh, look, I think that, for certain kids out there, apprenticeships are the way to go. If you're good with your hands and maybe not as good as you could be at school, it's a way to go for your career. And for me, that is exactly, it was perfect for me because I was good with my hands. I was good at laterally thinking about stuff, but I wasn't that flash at school. I didn't enjoy school. So maybe I might have been good at school if I had tried, but I didn't enjoy it at all. So the trade life was perfect for me.
And you recently teamed up with the Australian government to become an ambassador for apprenticeships. What exactly does that role involve and what's the objective with that role?
Oh, look, we do a bit of marketing and promotion for kids out there that are thinking about alternatives to university. I think that a lot of people out there don't realise that there's, over 400 apprenticeships available. People are always thinking of hairdressing, plumbing and carpentry, and there's 400 different apprenticeships that you can do. So I'm just encouraging kids at school to investigate that. And also, you're getting paid while you're studying as well, so you're getting yourself a job. We've got a shortage of tradesmen at the moment. That's only going to get worse. And so therefore, in 10 years, 5 years' time, that's going to be the gun job, the plumber, electrician, carpenter. That sort of trade life is going to be sought after. And I know that my old apprentices, I've had 5 apprentices over the years, they're getting in times $80, $90 an hour. It's not bad coin, is it?
It's very good money. And you see that getting better in the future, not worse because of the shortage.
Absolutely. There's going to be a shortage. Obviously, there's quite a few tradesmen out there now, but they're all getting older. I'm in the mid-50s, and all my contemporaries are all at the same boat. They're all 50s and 60s. So they're going to be retiring soon. All that whole batch of blokes that I worked with when I was a young bloke, they're all going to be retiring in the next 10 years. And that's across the board in Australia. So you can imagine, and there's not a great deal. There's definitely a shortage of tradesmen, and it's only going to get worse. But what we're trying to do is encourage kids to get involved, and then it won't be as bad as we all think it's going to be.
And do you come from the other angle as well? Like obviously, there's encouraging the new kids to be involved as they come out of school. But what about for the people in your position who have run businesses and that before? Do you feel there's an obligation there to pass those skills on?
Yeah, I do, absolutely. I think there's an obligation to do that, to keep your trade alive and keep it moving. That's another part of my role with the government, is trying to encourage blokes like myself to take apprentices on. But having said that, I've had meetings with the Minister and Federal Minister, and, there needs to be, the government needs to put up some incentives for those guys and girls, to encourage them to put an apprentice on, possibly a subsidy of the wage or things like that to make it more attractive. And I know that, I've done some ads for the bricklaying industry in the past, because they're concerned that and that's one of the trades that is really falling by the wayside, is bricklaying, because it's a hard trade to kick off with. There's no doubt about that. But, the blokes are getting $2 a brick now, so there's some coin to be made. And the bricklaying companies, like your CSRs and Borals and people like that, they're concerned there's not going to be anybody in 10 years' time to lay their product. And they're going to be making bricks, and there's going to be no one to put them in.
Is that where we're starting to see, in some circumstances, companies bringing in labour from overseas?
Well, I don't know about whether that's happening. I mean, there's talk about that in the press, and there's obviously some skilled labour coming in at times, and that is happening. And governments are probably having to do that because of the shortage. But obviously, that's not what we want to do. We want to encourage our local young people to get in there and take the trades over. What a great life it is being a tradesman. It's an incredible life, working hard and getting out and about and doing a great job creating something, of course. And then, working hard and having a cold beer at the end of the day, feeling fantastic about yourself. That's how I see a trade life.
By default, you sort of do instill a lot of those core Australian values through an apprenticeship, don't you? It's quite amazing when you think about it.
Oh, absolutely. The tradie, it conjures up a certain image of someone, doesn't it? The tradie. It's that bloke in a pair of shorts and boots and a singlet. But, these days there's a bit of high vis going on. But it's just that quintessential Aussie bloke is the tradesman. And woman, of course.
Of course, yeah. Well, with the high visas come the higher wage packets too, hasn't it? So we can't complain too much about the colour of the stuff we need to wear, I guess.
No, that's right. It's safety first, as we always say. Back in the old days, it probably wasn't safe enough. And there was always a few injuries on site. But these days, they've sort of stamping that out. It's great to see that the kids aren't getting injured. Young blokes going through are coming to grief at work.
The block can give, I guess, at times, and other shows like it, homeowners an unrealistic expectation of the timeframes involved with some of this work. What do you suggest people looking to undertake their own project?
Well, in answer to your first question, if somebody thinks that the building on the block is reality back in their house, well, then they need to get a handle on things, because it's pretty obvious that you're not going to get 25 people working on your house in one time. And tradesmen come up to me sometimes and go, "Oh, people are expecting me to build a bathroom in a week." I said, "Well, mate, we do it in a week, but it's obvious. You tell those people that they're idiots." Because we do it, but we've got everything on, everything's ready, everything's on site, everything is there, all the tradesmen are there. We've got every trade known to a bathroom standing by, ready to roll, one after the other. And obviously, in the real world that can't happen, because other people have got other jobs on, and you've got to wait 3 days for your waterproofer and things like that. And so the fact that we do it that way on the block doesn't mean it's going to happen in real life. And you know, it's pretty obvious to me that that's not going to happen. But anyway, some people think that they've got expectations. So why can't you build me a bathroom in a week? And it obviously can be done because we do it, but not in the real world, I wouldn't have thought.
And I suppose the other aspect is that it'd be a hell of a lot of planning that goes into coordinating the block before anyone ever, draws a hammer.
Not really. I mean, the contestants themselves have got to organise their waterproofer, their plumber, their tiler, and their screeder. So they've got to organise all that once they get there. So they don't know whether they're doing the bathroom on day one or whatever. So the planning is a bit panicky, but it gets there. But when people are doing their own renovations and that sort of thing at home, the biggest advice I can give them is to know your limitations, know what you can achieve yourself and what other people have to do for you, and know your budget and minimise your variations. And if you can do those three things, then you'll probably have a reasonable ride throughout a reno. If you can minimise your variations, that's the biggest cause of heartache between client and tradesman is changes. And then, of course, every time there's a change, it's $5,000, and you do 10 changes, it's $50,000. And then the job blows out at the end by $50,000, and the client says, "Well, I'm not paying that." And then the builder says, "Well, you changed your mind," and you go, "No, I didn't." Blah blah blah. And I've got lots of experience in that, and I've spoken to a lot of people that teach courses, to building courses and things like that, and they've asked me, "What do you think the biggest problem is?" I said, "Variations," and they all agree. So that's the biggest thing: know your limitations, minimise your variations, and know your budget.
What's the biggest plumbing disaster you've had on the show that you can recall?
Oh, on the show. Well, I think from my point of view, the biggest disaster is no fall in the bathrooms. You know, the fall going out the door, which to me, I don't understand how that happens. But anyway, it happens. And we do a water test. We certify all our waterproofing, obviously, before any screed goes down. And then we certify the screed that gets inspected. And then when all the bathrooms are finished, we pour a bucket of water on the floor and see where the water goes. The standard test, and if the water goes out the door, rip it up and do it again. And
that problem's not exclusive.
That's happened a few times.
Yeah, and that problem's not exclusive to the block either. Being a plumber, I can assure you of that.
I know. Being a builder and a chippy, I've seen it many times myself. I still don't understand how it happens, but it does happen.
What is your off-camera role involved with the show?
Oh, look, I suppose my off-camera role is I just wander around there. I go there every day, and I give them a bit of off-the-shoulder advice, keep their mind on the job and keep them motivated, that sort of thing. And so I play the host where I give them tasks and get them to do things and grouse on them when they go and cook. But then behind the scenes, I suppose I keep their chins up and let them know they're doing a good job. And we go around and they say, "We're thinking about doing this." I go, "Don't do that. Don't do that. Do this." And sometimes they agree with me, sometimes they disagree with me, at their peril.
What did you do? Fast forwarding quite a bit, you've obviously, personality fits very well with TV. It certainly comes across that way. What did you do after you won the Gold Logie that night?
Oh, I just got on the beers with all my crew and my mates and my wife, and because all our crew are at the after party because they're part of the deal, and cameras and sound and that. And we all had a big party, and then we went to lunch the next day and had a big post Logie's lunch, and then I crashed in bed at about 6:00 that night. But
well deserved.
Yeah, I had a big night, but I had to be up at 5 for radio and interviews and TV interviews and all that sort of thing. So I only had, I went to bed at 4:30, got up at 5:30 and worked for about 3 hours, and then amazing. I was shocked, and it was quite a reality check about how did this happen.
Was it ever
I've
planned?
watched Logies all my life, and since I was 10 years old, and seen it all, and that was another universe for Logies. The TV was another universe, and then all of a sudden I'm working in it, and then I'm there for 15 years, and I win the Gold Logie and the Silver Logie. So I was pretty amazed by it. So was my wife. We had a good laugh, and copped it on the chin, sitting on the mantelpiece at home. I love it.
And is it true that you've converted it into a stubby opener?
Yes. Yes, there's a bottle opener on the underside of it. I routed it in, housed it in, with a router, and it sits. You wouldn't know when it's sitting on the ground on the table, but then when you lift it up, it opens a stubby.
Perfect. Good for a barbecue.
How good's that? Yeah, that's right. My son had his 18th birthday a couple of years ago, and it was getting handed around all night, opening people's stubbies.
Hard hitting question. Well, what is your favourite beer?
I drink Carlton draft cans.
You don't even need your logo to open your beer then.
No, I don't. I'm a can drinker. I much prefer it out of a can. I was VB for many years. I sort of moved between VB cans and Carlton draft cans.
Is that because
if I'm in training, I might go to pure blonde in cans.
Is that because they cool quicker?
I think that they stay colder. I'm massively adamant about temperature of beer. That's why I drink middies at the pub most nights. That I go, 3 nights a week or 4 nights a week, drop into the pub and have a beer. I always drink middies, never schooners, because I reckon the last 5 ounces isn't as cold as the first 10.
No, I'd have to agree with you. I want to ask you a question that I think a lot of tradesmen face, and that is that choice that you have to make between doing the work that you like and putting food on the table. And what I've found is that people who create a pretty high level of success for themselves, like yourself, seem to have this ability to navigate the following your dreams versus putting food on the table equation. Have you got any thoughts on that? And how have you gone about it?
You mean like doing a job within your trade that you possibly don't like, but it's giving you the money you need?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, look, I think that I've obviously fallen into this situation by default or by accident. Otherwise, I would be still, just doing renos. And I was never, because where I live, there's no land. It was always renovations or second stories. The odd knockdown, rebuild, but mostly renos. And that's what I'd still be doing now, which I like to do, although it's hard. You've got to find an even balance to, as you say, making money and doing what you like to do. But at the same time, you've got to get yourself in a non-stress situation. I think a lot of tradesmen I know are stressed out. They're always stressed about chasing money. They're always stressed about paying wages. And that shouldn't be, but that is the reality of being a tradesman. And I must say that I'm glad that those days are behind me, because I did it for 30 years, chasing wages every Friday night and Friday afternoon so I could pay the men, and chasing enough money so I could give my wife some housekeeping money.
Of course, and I don't think I've ever spoken to another business owner who doesn't agree with exactly what you've just said. As far as
most businesses out there, mate. Most businesses out there, 95% of them get paid as the product gets delivered. We don't get paid when we do our work, or we get paid 3 months later, or a month later, or 2 weeks later. Whereas you walk into a restaurant, you buy a hamburger, you pay for it immediately, $10. Thank you. The bloke's got his money. And if there's a dispute, well, if you make a decent hamburger and it's not off or something like that, well, then there's no dispute. But in our case, it's conjecture. Like, you said you wanted this done, and the client says, no, I didn't say that. I wanted it like this. I said, well, that's not what I heard. That's where it becomes difficult for tradesmen as opposed to any other business.
Because every job is really custom, isn't it? I mean, building a house is building a house, but building a house A is not like building a house B, is it really? There's always going to be things that you come across, and you're always providing some degree of a custom product, which is always open to, conflict, I guess you'd say, because you're always dealing after the fact.
That's right. It's always open to interpretation.
Exactly.
That's where it becomes tough, and I think tradesmen, the stress for tradesmen is quite high when they're running their own business. If you're a chippy working for someone else, well, you're not as stressed. You're just getting the job done, and that's where I think you're talking about. You go and work on wages and be less stressed, but you want to raise your family and buy a better house. So you start your own business, as most tradesmen eventually do at some point. Then the stress is on them, and they employ subbies and so on. But I think it's a rite of passage. You've got to run your own business. And I think that what a lot of tradesmen lack, and I was probably one of them, is business skills, is running a business. So I can do the job, but running the business is quite difficult. And, we're not trained properly for that.
So where does someone get that training? If you've got ambitions to provide a good life for your family and all that sort of stuff, which there's no dispute that, as it has for you, that a trade business can do. Where do you get that information from? Because there's a clear, as you've alluded to, a clear lack of that.
Yeah, well, look, there's plenty of small courses or business courses that you can do through TAFE or adult education and things like that. There's lots of them. But I think that there should be more emphasis put at trade school in your 4-year apprenticeship on business skills and running a business. I mean, obviously we've got to learn the trade, but most of that's been done on site. And there should be a whole... And look, mind you, I haven't done it for 30 years, so maybe there is more emphasis on business skills these days. I don't know. But if there isn't, there should be, and if there's not going to be, then I think you've got to do it externally. After you finish your apprenticeship, you should go and do a business course to learn about how to run a business successfully and how to manage that money.
Do you have any specific money advice for business owners? I mean, we all need more training, clearly, but is there anything that you can say, if you're going to do anything, just make sure you do this one thing?
Well, if you're going to do anything, is buy your own house. That's what I say. The easiest way to make $100,000 a year or $50,000 a year, depending on where you're buying a house, is to buy a house. And as a tradesman, you can do that up, rent it out. You don't have to live in it. You live at home with mum and dad. But buy a house, do it, use your skills to improve on that house, hang on to it, rent it out, and then sell it. If you're in a reasonable area, you don't have to buy a mansion. You can just buy a 2-bedroom unit or something. You'll make $20,000 a year for doing, not much.
And the research I did...
I mean, the thing is, in our game, tradesmen, that's our superannuation, is trying to have some property. You buy some property and try not to sell it. You do it up, rent it out, buy again. And, and that's what I think a tradesman's superannuation is bricks and mortar. Because you can maintain it yourself. You can look after it. People will disagree with me and say the percentage returns are only 3 or 4%. But at the end of the day, do tradesmen know a lot about shares? I don't think so. Do they know about investments in other things? I don't think so. I think property is what tradesmen know.
Because it's not all about what you make, is it? There's also the other aspect of what you need to put into it. And if you're not paying for the trade, then automatically your returns go through the roof compared to, the general figures quoted or whatever, because you just don't have the same cost.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that, like plumbers, electricians, people like that, they're all pretty handy. They've been on a building site their whole life, and so therefore they can have a crack at a little bit of gyprocking, and obviously they do the electrical and they get a plumber in and vice versa. And a carpenter, he can do, the plastering and all that sort of thing, but he gets a plumber and an electrician in. But, there's lots of things you can do within the house. Obviously you paint the whole joint yourself, and, you certainly, that's your super. That's where you've got to end up when you're 50 with a couple of joints.
Quick question about technology. Obviously changed a lot of things that we do, bank, communicate, commute, and all these sort of things. Do you see anything in the pipeline that will affect trade businesses? And by that I mean, is the Uber or Airbnb or Amazon heading the way of trades?
Oh, look, I don't think so, because there's been so many of those things on the market over the years where you dial a tradesman and you get a quote on an app. And that, to me, I don't know how they work, because you've got to look at the job and you've got to know the bloke. You don't even know this guy. You're just looking at a name in your area. And so I don't, social media is obviously going to play a big part for tradesmen in the coming years. It's going to be advertising and marketing, and you can, run your own little YouTube channel of your work and your skills and your past clients and things like that. I think one of the great things, and I'm sure it's out there now that they're doing, which I've seen, in fact, where you can pay on the spot, with a swipe. So a tradesman has a banking system. I mean, because I'm out of the picture these days, but that's out there, isn't it? The blokes are using that now. Hello?
Yeah, absolutely they are, yeah. And that's been a real sort of revolution, I guess, in the last maybe 3 years, because if you can get payment at the time of completion, it goes a long way to, minimising the arguments that can come a month or two later, which we all, we all know what we're talking about as tradesmen, with that.
You're saving all that bookwork and writing up the invoice and posting it off and waiting a week, and then blah, 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 the bloke hasn't paid. So you say, sir, have you got a credit card on you before you get there? And I mean, it works more so for plumbers and electricians, I think, where they're coming in and doing $300 worth of work. Or, when it comes to carpentry and building, I don't see how that's going to work, where you get, if you're doing a $100,000 job. And I know you guys do $100,000 jobs, but in that case, you can't say, well, I'd like a $20,000 payment now on a card. transform. I don't know if that works, if clients are willing to do that. But to me, that's gonna fix up some of the stuff we've talked about earlier.
Absolutely. On your website, you write that it's your mission to make sure Aussie kids enjoy the simple things in life. What are we missing today as youngsters?
Oh, mate, I sound like an old bloke, but, I think that and my kids are good at mixing both. I've got older kids, they're 20 and 17. I've got 17-year-old twins. And that is, is the rule when I was a kid, is if the sun's shining, get outside, and when the street lights come on home. And I think a lot of kids are, they should be, they're building a billy cart. Maybe not a billy cart these days, but back in my day it was a billy cart, or, it could be anything to get out and about and do stuff. Get in the shed and knock stuff up. Kids used to do that all the time. We'd go in the old man's shed and make something and go outside with it. And that's what I think. And look, this all stems to electronic media. And we all know, it's been talked about in the press 1,000 times, that there's just too much screen time and not enough sun time.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree with that. I've actually got 2-year-old twins, so maybe I should ask you some parenting advice, yeah. 15 years behind, but yeah. That's what
well, I've got I'm at the other end of the scale. And look, it's fantastic, and it's always different, mate. 2 years old is fantastic, and 17-year-olds are fantastic as well. My twins are unreal. They're doing a HSC this year, and I've got a 20-year-old that's been through it already. But the only thing I can say, mate, is it's just gone too quick. I just wish they were 2 years old again.
That's amazing.
So you're in a very envious position as far as I'm concerned, because you've got what I want. You've got 2-year-old twins.
Have you steered them in the direction of a trade, or rather have they chosen to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, look, my eldest son is doing engineering, so he's very good on the tools because he's growing up helping me.
Oh,
and
wow,
we've got a property, we've got a country, we run cattle on a property, and we've done a lot of building up there over the years, improving. So he's been there with me every step of the way on that. So because he's the eldest, so he's been swinging a nail bag, and he top woodwork in his HSC. So he's very good at it. He made a magnificent cabinet, which is down in our dining room. But he's gone to the next level, I think, which is engineering, which will be really good. He's still in that building game and construction, but he's getting a university degree, which is, it's fantastic for our family for him to get a degree and get to the university. But my son and the twins, he may be steering in that direction. He's talked to me about it, and I've got more tools than might have 10 downstairs in the workshop, and we could start off we could roll off a business tomorrow with 5 blokes with the gear I've got downstairs.
That sounds like the typical tradesman's garage. Is it twin boys, did you say?
Boy, girl.
Oh, boy, girl. Oh, exactly the same. There you go.
Yeah,
is your daughter that way inclined at all?
No, she's not really that way inclined, but she's, it's amazing when you've got boy-girl twins because you can see the inherent differences between a boy and a girl right there in your very in front of your very eyes, without influencing them in any way. It
really is two different people at once, isn't it? It's crazy, the stuff you see and go through. It's quite fun, actually.
Yeah, well, without us putting anything in front of them, my daughter was Barbies and my son was tipper trucks, without even trying to influence them in either, each way.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? We've had exactly the same thing, so it's awesome. Out of all those tools in your garage, have you got a favourite?
Yeah, look, I've got lots and lots of tools. My favourite tool, I really like a sharp set of chisels. That's always been my favourite thing. A really sharp set of chisels, which I've got quite a few of, and I've got a lot of sharpening equipment that keeps them all sharp. And I suppose in the power tool, I've got a table saw down there, which is a 5-way combination table saw. So it's got a thicknesser and a joiner and table saw, and it's got a spindle moulder, and it's got a mortise and tenon attachment on the side. So that's my favourite big tool, and small tools. I like sander. I like belt sanders, actually.
So you like mucking around with furniture?
No, I don't actually. I don't, but I like. I don't mind mucking around with furniture, but I'm into the building side of things. But I like to be able to use the table saw to do the finer stuff if I have to do it. Like I built a sort of a library wall at our house out of, 2 different types of timber and inlaid it. And that's what you can use the table saw for, to do all that sort of thing. It looks really terrific, It's like a library wall that you'd see in a flash house. But it'd cost you a lot of money to get it built, but I just knocked it up myself, so it's great.
The advantage of being a tradesman, obviously.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Just got a couple of quick questions, and then I'll let you go, because I know your time
you're right, mate.
is limited.
No worries, buddy.
Have you got any favourite books or documentaries you can recommend?
Favourite books, yeah. My favourite book of all time is A Fortunate Life by Albert Facey. Have you ever read that?
No, I haven't, but I'll put it on my list.
For maybe 30 people in my life.
Wow.
And so read this. It's written by a man called Bertie Facey, or Albert, but they used to call him Bertie when he was a kid. He had this incredible life, and his daughter, when he was about 83, said, "You should write this down. You should write your life down, write a story, write the book." And so he wrote it, and he actually died just as it was published. And he lived in Fremantle in Perth, and he's had this terrible life up until, the time he was married, I suppose. And the book's called A Fortunate Life by Albert Facey, and it's his life story from the age of 6 years old, where he had to go to work, and it's an Aussie story, and it's all Australian, and you'll recognise all the places. It's a fantastic read. The people I've given it to, I've got about 4 copies here now, in case someone walks in and haven't read it. So I said, take that.
That's awesome.
That was a great influence on me. I really, when you think you go, well, shit, that I'm having a bad day or something like that, you think about, I've got a very fortunate life.
On the other side, what's the worst advice you hear dished out for tradesmen?
Well, I have a theory about advice, and that is advice only suits the person giving it. That's been my lifelong motto. So I'm not an advice person. I don't receive advice. I don't really give that much advice unless I'm asked. But, I'll certainly give advice to my apprentices and about how to work and things like that. But advice only ever suits the person that's giving it to you. It might not be anywhere near what is good for you. You've got to make up your own decisions about how you work and how and your lifestyle and things like that. You can obviously be steered in some directions, but I think that's something that I've lived by that has worked for me pretty well.
What does the future on the TV side of things entail for you? Is there anything on the horizon you're working on?
Mate, if it keeps going, I'll be in a bloody Zimmer front, But I'm 54 or 50. I think I'm 55 this year, and I'm getting a bit. You would know, how are you, Matt? Are you young? You must be 30 something.
I'm 37, yeah, late 30s, so it's getting towards scary 40.
And that's where you start this. When you get about 45, it starts stiffing up a bit, and from your 30 years as a tradesman, and crawling around on your hands and knees and all that sort of thing. And I'm pretty good. I'm pretty fit, and I go for a walk every day. I swim all the time. But TV for me, I'd hope to get 20. I've been at Channel 9 for 17 years, and I've got another couple of years to go with them on this existing contract. So I've got 2 this year and next year. And that'll be 19 years. So I'd like to get 20 years up at the network and then see what happens after that. So we've got a couple more years of the block to go. And then we'll see after that, mate. I might have to go do a bit of fishing and stuff like that, I reckon.
You're sort of putting together a pretty good story for yourself that might be worth writing down at some point.
Oh, yeah. Well, mate, nothing like Albert Facey. I'm assuming you're going to go and buy that book and read it for me. And then
I'll
you can
definitely
bring me back
do that.
and tell me what you think.
I'll definitely do that. No, it's one of the things that I try and take out of each of the people that I talk to. Something to go and do and try. And if it's recommended by someone like yourself, then there's no question about that. That's on my list.
Good on you, mate. Well done.
Is there any parting words, advice? Well, you don't give advice unless you're asked. I'm asking you for advice. So
yeah, no. You know what I mean when I say that. I give advice sometimes if someone asks me, someone like in their 20s or young, But I always say to them, look, that's what I think, but that might not suit you at all. But my advice to young tradesmen is to work really hard, march from A to B. That's what I always used to say to my young blokes, don't drag your feet when you walk. If I ask you to go and get a level from over there, don't walk over slowly, march over there, pick up that level, march it back. Work your ass off. You need to, when you get home from work, when you're a first-year apprentice, and you need to lie on the lounge room floor like I did and fall asleep for 2 hours, stretching your back out. with no mattress or pillow, just stretched out in a starfish position for 2 hours, and then get up and eat as much as you can, and maybe go to the pub or something like that. But that's where you should be at when you're working hard. When you're working hard as a young bloke, there should be nothing less than that. You've got to put 110% in, and you'll get so much out of life as a tradesman, as a man, as a person, if you really give 110% to the job.
I love it. It doesn't get any more simple than that, does it? Don't drag your feet where you walk.
No. When you're picking up that level, march over there and march back.
Thanks for doing this, Scotty. Appreciate you jumping on the...
No, mate, my pleasure. It's been a really nice interview, mate. You've done a really great job, and I've enjoyed it. And I'm really excited for you with your 2-year-old twins. You're going to have a great time together.
Awesome, mate. Appreciate the time, and I'll get back to you and let you know what I think about that book you recommended. A
Fortunate Life by A.B. Facey.
Thanks, mate.
Hey everybody, it's Matt again. Thanks for listening. Just a couple of things before you guys clock off. You can get all Trench Talk episodes at xrm.com.au/podcast. You can also sign up for other goodies at the same site. Just plonk your email in there and you are covered. That's X for X-ray, R for Romeo, M for Mike.com.au/podcast. If you really like what I'm bringing you, please head to iTunes, subscribe to this show and leave a review right there. And lastly, if you want to contact me directly, type the @ symbol followed by Mr. Matt Reynolds into your search bar and you'll find all the social links. Goodbye.